Right, welcome Year 10 to our first practical project, the barbecue. I know we're all excited for this one, but before we do get into it, I want us to practice doing some miter joints because these are hard to do, and if you don't do them right, you're going to ruin your whole project and waste a lot of metal. So I've cut everyone out a little bit of metal like this, ready to go. So what a miter joint is, you might have done one in woodwork so far, it's where we have 45 degrees and it meets up and makes a corner. So all four corners of our barbecue is going to have a miter joint. It's important when we do our miter joints that our two 45 degrees go inward. So see, I've got one here that goes inward. My next one I'd cut would go this way. That way they both go inward. If you don't do that, you're going to end up just making a straight bit of metal. For this project, what we're going to need is a hacksaw, a miter square, which is this fancy device, a scribe, a grinder, and a steel ruler. Alrighty, so we're ready to go. I have my little bit of metal here. I did tell a little lie. We're also going to need an engineer square just for the first part. So what I want us to do is measure 10 millimeters in from one edge and scribe a line across. So what I'm going to do, I got my 10. I'm going to get my scribe, do a little line there. I'm going to take my engineer square and I'm going to square that all the way across. The reason for this is when we do get our lengths of metal, they're not going to be cut to size, so we're going to have to cut them down. This is just practicing our skills cutting down. So we got our first line there. I'm then going to flip it over, put the other edge here, line up our line, and then scrub that across it again. Do a few pulls, that way you have a nice defined line. So now I have my cutting line. So now, when I put this in the vise, I want to put it in a way that I can see the line visibly and I'm not going to cut over it. You're always going to make sure you're going to cut on the waist side of that line and then we're going to grind down. So I'm going to put it in our vise just like this, nice and tight. I'm going to grab my hacksaw and I'm going to use my finger to guide that for the first few cuts. And then I'm going to grab it and cut all the way down to the very bottom here. Once I reach the bottom, I'm going to flip it over and then do the other side. Alrighty, so I've made it to the end. I've cut all the way along, just on the outside of that line, if you can see the line's just there. I haven't gone over, I've left room. I can either file that down because it's very close, or I can use the grinder. Preferably we want to file it, that way we don't go past it. I'm then going to put it in, but you're going to notice I'm putting it in the opposite side because I can't put it in this way because it's not going to protrude past our vise. And if I flip it this way, I'm not going to be able to see our line. So you always want to be able to see that line so we don't go past it. So same thing, I flipped it around. I'm making sure I'm going on the wastage side, which is the left side now, and I'm going to cut down. Hear the sound change, we're getting close. All right, I'm going to say that's going to do it. So, to be honest, most of the time your lines aren't going to match up perfectly, so you can see it's sort of just missing. So all I'm going to do, I can either put it in the vise like this, tighten it up on just that wastage side, and then just bend it, and that'll crack off like that. And now what I'm going to do, I'd get the grinder and I'd grind that down to the line. Alright, so we're coming up to our final stages. We're going to need our miter square now. You're going to notice it has a 45 along here and a 90 here. Similar to the tri-squares in the woodwork shop, but we have that 45 here. Please make sure when you mark this, you got to remember it's always going to go on the inside like that. So on an angle like that and that. If you go towards the outside, it's going to end up just making a straight. So on the inside, I'm going to put this on the edge of my bench. I'm going to line it up to where the edge, the very point of this miter square, is at the very edge of our metal. I'm then going to scribe the 45 line, making sure it's nice and defined. And we can see that. You can see I've done that quite a few times, and we have our line there that goes in. While I'm here, I'm also going to do the other way, making sure it goes inward, otherwise you're going to be in a bit of struth. Like that. So you can see both of our edges, both our 45s go inwards. Alright, so we're up to our final stage of this miter joint. So I've got it in the vise, making sure my 2 marks are facing upwards. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut along the flat side of this metal, and I'm going to make sure I'm on the wastage side of this line. So I'll take it out quickly and show you. Here's my line. I'm going to cut on this side, making sure I don't go over that line, because we're going to file or grind that line down after. So I'm going to put it so it's sort of protruding out, and it's going to be hard, but you're going to have to slowly start it, taking your time to sort of dig that nice groove in. Once you have that groove in, you can then start going on the edge and cutting down. What are you doing? And you're going to see my hacksaw is at a 45-degree angle, and I cut all the way down, making sure I don't go past that line. Alrighty, so that's now been cut out, and you can see, I can get that to focus. That line is just on the outside where I've made that 45-degree cut. So I'll now take the grinder and I'll grind that down to the line, or I can file it, and then that's going to be perfectly 45-degree angle. And then I'll cut this one out as well.